Have you ever been humiliated in public by someone who thought they were better than you? At 8:12 a.m., the elevators opened on the 32nd floor of Metacon Financial. Elliot Rowan was already there. Gray uniform, cleaning cart parked neatly against the wall. Waiting. A group of executives stepped out, laughing mid-conversation. One of them stopped abruptly and frowned at the cart. "You can't leave that here," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is the executive floor." Elliot glanced at the cart, then back at the man. "I'm scheduled to clean this floor." The executive sighed, long and exaggerated, then turned to the others. "Every morning," he said, shaking his head. "They just put these people wherever they want." Someone laughed. Another added, "It's like they don't even know where they belong." Elliot didn't argue. He quietly rolled the cart a few feet back. As they walked away, one of them muttered, just loud enough, "Imagine ending up like that." Elliot heard it. He always did. And what none of them knew was that this silence was deliberate. Elliot Rowan had been working as a janitor at Metacon Financial Group for 11 months. Every morning, he followed the same routine. Empty trash bins, wipe fingerprints off glass conference tables, scrub-dried coffee from marble floors while analysts rushed past in tailored suits and $1,000 shoes. He heard fragments of their lives echo through the hallways. Complaints about bonuses, arguments about vacation homes. A Porsche scratch was discussed like a personal crisis. And every single day they looked straight through him, as if he were part of the building itself. But Elliot wasn't there by accident. 3 years earlier, Elliot had sold his stake in a logistics software company for a number most people would assume was exaggerated. He didn't need to work again, but money had stopped being the point. Instead, Elliot spent the next 18 months quietly acquiring shares of Metacon Financial through a blind trust. Shell companies, third-party brokers, offshore holdings, all legal, all clean, all invisible. By the time the board realized someone was accumulating shares aggressively, control was already gone. Elliot owned 53% of the company, and no one, not the executives, not the board, not even the CEO, knew his name. He could have walked in immediately, announced himself, taken the corner office overlooking the city. But he wanted something first. He wanted the truth. He wanted to see how people behaved when they believed there were no consequences, when they thought the person standing next to them didn't matter. So he applied for a job in facilities, passed the background check, showed up in a gray uniform with Elliot stitched above the pocket. And he started cleaning. By the second week, Elliot knew more about Metacon Financial than any consultant's report could reveal. He learned that Todd Brennan, the CEO's nephew, left confidential acquisition documents on his desk overnight. He learned the vice president of operations screamed at assistants behind closed doors. He learned 2 senior traders were quietly running side deals that were dangerously close to compliance violations. He learned all of this because no one ever lowered their voice around the janitor. They didn't think he mattered enough to notice. One Friday afternoon, Elliot was wiping down the glass walls of a conference room when a meeting ran late. 6 executives, expensive suits, voices rising. The door was slightly open. "Revenue's down again," someone said. "We need to cut costs before Q3. "Where?" another asked. "Facilities, cleaning staff, security." Elliot kept wiping the glass. Slow, even strokes. "How much?" "Enough to make the numbers look better. No one's going to miss a few janitors." Laughter filled the room. One executive glanced up and briefly met Elliot's eyes through the glass, then looked away. Elliot stood there while they planned to erase his job, and they didn't care. But that wasn't the worst part. 2 weeks later, Elliot was cleaning the executive break room when Todd Brennan walked in with a client, mid-pitch. Todd grabbed a bottled water from the fridge without looking at him. The client paused. "Could you come back later?" she asked Elliot. "We're in the middle of something." "I'll just be a minute," Elliot replied calmly. Todd waved a dismissive hand. "He's fine. He's not even here." The client hesitated, then continued. Todd laughed. Elliot emptied the trash and left the room. That night, Elliot sat alone in his modest one-bedroom apartment and reviewed internal reports. The situation was worse than anyone knew. Metacon Financial was bleeding cash. Executives were hiding it with accounting tricks and layoffs. They were stripping the foundation to preserve the illusion. Elliot could have ended it all that night, but he didn't. Not yet. Because he wanted to see how far they'd go. Here's where things began to change. 3 months later, Elliot started tracking patterns. Not formally, but just quietly. Lisa Adams, a junior analyst, was the only person who ever said good morning. No performance, no pity, just respect. Kevin, an assistant, stood shaking outside an office after the VP hurled a stapler across the room. Todd Brennan left early every Thursday for golf, while logging a full workday. Elliot noticed who stayed late, who cut corners, who lied easily, and who told the truth when it cost them. One afternoon, raised voices erupted behind an executive door. "You're putting the entire company at risk," the CEO shouted. "It's fine," Todd replied. "No one will find out." "If the SEC, they won't." Elliot slowed his cart, adjusted a trash bag. The door flew open. Todd stormed out, brushing past him without apology. The CEO glanced at Elliot, then closed the door. If you're enjoying stories like this, subscribing helps you catch the next one, because the ending changes everything. By month 7, the decision was made for him. Another round of layoffs was coming. Facilities, security, even analysts who'd been there for years. Executive bonuses increasing. Elliot stood at the back of the all-hands meeting in his gray uniform. The CEO spoke about restructuring, about remaining competitive. No one looked at Elliot, but Elliot looked at them. And that night, he called his lawyer. "It's time." Friday, 9 a.m., an emergency board meeting. No one knew who the majority shareholder was. At 8:45, Elliot arrived, still in uniform. He pushed his cart into the boardroom and began emptying trash bins. They ignored him. At 9:02, a lawyer entered and sat at the head of the table. "I represent the majority shareholder of Metacon Financial," she said. The CEO leaned forward. "Who is it?" She smiled. "He's already here." Then she gestured to Elliot. Silence. Todd laughed nervously. "That's the janitor." "That," the lawyer said calmly, "is Elliot Rowan. And he owns this company." Elliot set down the trash bag, pulled out a chair, sat. Folders slid across the table. Share certificates, verified. Todd's hands shook. "You've been working here?" the CEO whispered. "For 11 months, Elliot replied. "Why?" "Because I wanted to see how you treated people when you thought it didn't matter." The look on their faces was like they had seen a ghost. "How?" they asked. But the time for questions was long over. Todd was removed immediately. The VP was terminated. Layoffs canceled. Promotions announced. Elliot stood and walked toward the door. "I'll be staying in facilities another month," he said quietly. "So if you see me in the hallway," he turned back, "say good morning." After that, things changed. People noticed. Lisa Adams became the youngest VP in company history. Kevin stepped into management. And Elliot eventually took the role he'd owned all along, without ever taking the corner office. Because power, he learned, isn't about titles. It's about what you do when no one thinks you're watching. Next time, I'll tell you about the woman who went undercover as a line cook in the restaurant chain she secretly owned. What she found in the freezer shut the place